The gunshot echoed through the destroyed ballroom before Ayanna Sinclair could even register the pain. Blood bloomed across the white silk of her wedding gown like a crimson flower, and for a moment, just one suspended, crystalline moment, she thought this was how it would end. Married for less than 6 hours, dying in the arms of a man who was supposed to be her enemy. "Ayanna!" Yoon's voice cut through the chaos, raw and desperate in a way she'd never heard from him before. His hands were on her waist, pulling her down behind the overturned table as bullets shredded the air where her head had been seconds ago. "Stay with me, look at me," she did. Dark eyes met hers, fierce and terrified and furious all at once. Strange, she thought, through the haze of adrenaline and shock, how the most dangerous man in Seoul looked absolutely wrecked at the sight of her blood. "I'm fine," she gasped, though her shoulder screamed otherwise. "Just grazed me. You're bleeding." "I said I'm fine." She shoved him back, ignoring the way her vision swam. Around them, the wedding reception had transformed into a war zone. Viktor Sokolov's men poured through every entrance like a plague, and the elite guests, crime bosses, politicians, the corrupt elite of 2 continents, were either dead or scrambling for cover. "We need to move. Now." Hyun stared at her for one more heartbeat, something unreadable flickering across his face. Then his expression hardened into the cold mask she'd come to recognize, the one that made men twice his size step back in fear. "Stay close to me," he ordered, pulling a gun from beneath his destroyed tuxedo jacket. "And try not to die. It would be terrible for business." "How romantic," Ayanna shot back, pressing her hand against her wound as she drew her own weapon with her good arm. "I can see why women line up for you." His mouth twitched, almost a smile. "There's only one woman stupid enough to marry me." "Lucky me." They moved together. Through the smoke and chaos, and despite everything, the pain, the terror, the very real possibility that they'd both die here, Ayanna felt something click into place. They moved like they'd trained together for years, each covering the other's blind spots, anticipating movements, reading each other's intentions without words. If you're loving this chaos already, hit that subscribe button because this is just the beginning. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this ends. And drop a comment telling me, would you marry a stranger to save your empire? 3 months earlier, Ayanna would have laughed if someone told her she'd be fighting for her life alongside a Korean crime lord on her wedding day. 3 months earlier, she'd been focused on one thing only, crushing Viktor Sokolov before he crushed her. The first sign of war came on a Tuesday. Ayanna stood in the war room of the Sinclair estate, watching surveillance footage of her Amsterdam operation being systematically destroyed. 12 men, all dead, all executed with the kind of precision that spoke of military training and unlimited resources. Her hand trembled slightly as she gripped her whiskey glass, the only outward sign of the rage boiling in her chest. "He's declaring war." Malik's voice came from behind her, steady and certain. He'd been her father's right-hand man before James Sinclair died, and now that loyalty had transferred to her. At 32, Malik was built like a fortress, 6'3" of pure muscle, with the kind of presence that made men instinctively step back. 6 operations in 3 days. Paris, Lagos, Amsterdam. He's not being subtle. Good. Ayanna downed her whiskey in one burning swallow. I'm tired of subtlety anyway. She was 25 years old and had been running the Sinclair empire for 6 years. Ever since that car accident that definitely wasn't an accident had killed both her parents. She'd inherited an organization worth $60 million and tripled it through a combination of ruthless intelligence, strategic brutality, and an Oxford education her father had insisted she complete before taking over. The empire spanned luxury car theft, art forgery, cryptocurrency laundering, and enough legitimate real estate to make it all look respectable. She was good at what she did. Damn good. But Viktor Sokolov was better, older, and had the entire Russian Bratva behind him. "We need allies," Malik said carefully. "We can't fight this alone." "I don't do allies." Ayanna turned from the screens, her long, wavy brown hair catching the light as she moved. She'd inherited her mother's looks, dark skin that gleamed like polished mahogany, sharp cheekbones, eyes that could cut glass. Her father's British Reserve and her mother's Nigerian fire had created something formidable. Allies become liabilities. Your father thought differently. The mention of her father made something twist in Ayanna's chest. James Sinclair had been larger than life. Brilliant, ruthless, and yet somehow principled in his own way. He'd built his empire from nothing, turned it into something that commanded respect across 3 continents. And then he died, leaving her to hold it all together at 19. "My father's dead," she said flatly. "This is my empire now." Malik placed something on the table between them, an evidence bag. Inside it, a Rolex watch that made Ayanna's breath catch. Victor sent this. She picked it up with shaking hands. Her father's watch, the one he'd been wearing the night he died, the one that had supposedly been lost in the wreckage. "How?" Her voice came out strangled. "I don't know, but there's more." Malik handed her a phone. Encrypted message came through this morning. Ayanna read the text, her blood running cold with each word. "Your father didn't die in an accident. Ask Edward Park about Seoul, about the Lee family, about the promise. Who sent this? Unknown, untraceable. Get Edward Park." Ayanna's voice was steel now, all emotion locked away behind the walls she'd spent 6 years building. "I want him here in an hour." Ayanna. Now Malik. He left without another word. Ayanna stood alone in the war room, surrounded by screens showing her empire, holding her dead father's watch, and feeling the foundations of everything she knew beginning to crack. Across the world in Seoul, Cha Hyun-woo was having a similarly terrible day. The informant's screams had stopped 5 minutes ago, which meant he was either unconscious or dead. Hyun wiped the blood from his hands with clinical detachment, his expression never changing. At 30, he'd perfected the art of separating emotion from necessity. You didn't survive the streets by having feelings. You didn't build an empire by showing mercy. "He's dead." Im Junho's voice came from the doorway. Junho had been Hyun's sworn brother since they were 15, when they'd both been nothing more than street rats fighting for scraps. Now they ran Seoul's most powerful criminal organization together. "Didn't tell us anything useful." "He told us enough." Hyun turned away from the body. He was dressed entirely in black, his dark hair falling across eyes that had seen too much, too young. A scar cut through his left eyebrow, a reminder of the streets that had forged him. Tattoos peeked from his collar, intricate designs that told the story of his rise from nothing to everything. "Victor's moving faster than we thought. He's not just expanding territory, he's eliminating competition. Us included, us especially." Hyun stripped off his blood-stained shirt, reaching for a clean one. "He knows we won't bend the knee." "Elder Kwan is here," Junho said carefully. "Says it's urgent. Something about Lee De-han's will." Hyun froze. Lee De-han. The man who'd found him half dead in an alley at 15, beaten nearly to death for stealing food from the wrong territory. The man who'd given him a choice: die in the streets or learn to fight back. The man who'd trained him, molded him, made him heir to an empire worth 300 million. The man who died 3 years ago and left Hyun with a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. "I'll be there in 5 minutes." Elder Kwan sat in the private office like a statue, his 70 years evident in the lines of his face, but not in the sharpness of his eyes. He'd been Lee De-han's advisor for 40 years, had helped build the empire from nothing. Now he served Hyun with the same unwavering loyalty. "You promised Lee De-han you would honor his final wishes," Elder Kwan said without preamble. "Do you remember?" Hyun did. He remembered everything about that night. Lee Da-han dying, blood on his lips, gripping Hyun's hand with the last of his strength. Anything, 15-year-old Hyun had promised through his tears. I'll do anything. Even if it costs you everything? Daehan had asked. Even then. What does he want? Hyun asked now, his voice carefully neutral. Elder Kwon opened the leather briefcase, pulling out documents that looked decades old. Marriage to the Sinclair daughter in London. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. No, Hyun stood abruptly. Absolutely not. Her father, James Sinclair, saved Lee Da-han's life 20 years ago. This was the blood debt, the contract. And now Viktor Sokolov threatens both empires. United, you survive. Divided, you fall. I don't need some British princess playing at being a gangster. Then you forfeit everything Lee Da-han built. Elder Kwon's voice was iron. The clause is clear. Marry the Sinclair heir, or the empire passes to Lee Da-han's nephew in Busan. You have 3 days to meet her in Hong Kong. Hyun wanted to rage, to refuse, to tell Elder Kwon exactly where he could shove this arranged marriage bullshit. But he'd made a promise, and Cha Hyun-woo kept his promises. Fine, he said through gritted teeth. Set it up. In London, Ayanna was learning truths that shattered her world. Edward Park sat across from her in the library, looking every one of his 70 years. He'd been her father's lawyer, confidant, friend. Now he was destroying everything Ayanna thought she knew. Your father anticipated Viktor would eventually move against you, Edward said quietly. He made arrangements. What arrangements? Ayanna's voice was dangerously calm. An alliance. A marriage contract signed 20 years ago with Lee Da-han of Seoul. The words didn't make sense at first. Then they did, and Ayanna felt her entire body go cold. Excuse me? She stood slowly, every muscle tensed. My father sold me. Your father protected you. Edward's expression didn't change. Lee Da-han saved your father's life. In exchange, your father promised that if Viktor ever threatened the family, you would marry Lee's heir. Cha Hyun-woo. United, the Sinclair and Lee empires are untouchable. Viktor can't fight a war on 2 fronts. And if I refuse, the Sinclair empire reverts to Isaiah's children. Ayanna laughed. It was a bitter, hollow sound. My brother, who abandoned us the moment things got difficult, gets everything? Isaiah, her older brother by 3 years, the golden child who was supposed to inherit, who'd taken one look at the empire after their parents died and ran, disappeared with millions from the accounts and never looked back. She'd spent 6 years building what he'd been too weak to hold. Those are the terms, Edward said. Who is this Cha Hyun-woo? Street orphan turned mafia king. Lee Da-han found him at 15, trained him, made him heir. He's formidable. Ayanna turned away, her mind racing. Everything she'd built, everything she'd sacrificed. Her entire adult life had been dedicated to this empire, and now she was being told to marry a stranger or lose it all. When do I meet him? Hong Kong, 3 days. Ayanna closed her eyes, opened them. When she spoke, her voice was ice. Set it up. But understand something, Edward. This changes nothing. I run my empire. I make my own decisions. This marriage is a business arrangement. Nothing more. Of course, Miss Sinclair. But as Edward left, Ayanna caught her reflection in the window. For just a moment, she looked vulnerable, young, scared. Then the mask slammed back into place, and she was the Sinclair heir again. Untouchable, unbreakable. Or so she told herself. Hong Kong rose from the sea like a promise and a threat all at once. Ayanna stared out the helicopter window as they descended toward the neutral territory, her stomach tight with something she refused to call nervousness. She'd negotiated with warlords, stared down men twice her size, ordered executions without blinking. One arranged marriage to a stranger shouldn't make her hands shake. And yet, "You don't have to do this," Malik said from beside her. He'd insisted on coming, along with 2 other guards. Standard security protocol. Definitely not because he was worried about her. "Yes, I do." Ayanna smoothed down her ivory pantsuit, checked that her gun was properly concealed. "For the Empire." "Your father wouldn't have wanted this." "My father made this arrangement." The words came out sharper than intended. He clearly wanted it very much. The helicopter touched down on the rooftop of a luxury high-rise, all glass and steel and money. Ayanna stepped out, her heels clicking against the concrete, brown hair whipping in the wind from the rotors. She looked every inch the queen she'd made herself. Gold accessories catching the sunlight, posture perfect, face giving away nothing. Then she saw him. Cha Hyun-woo stood near the elevator entrance, and Ayanna's breath caught despite herself. He was taller than she'd expected, dressed in a black suit that looked like it cost more than most people's cars. No tie, shirt unbuttoned just enough to be disrespectful. Dark hair, darker eyes, and a face that would have been beautiful if it weren't so hard. The scar through his eyebrow should have made him look damaged. Instead, it made him look dangerous. 3 men flanked him, all clearly armed, all watching her group like wolves sizing up prey. For a long moment, nobody moved. The 2 groups faced each other across the rooftop like opposing armies, about to go to war. Then Hyun gestured toward the conference room, his expression completely unreadable. "Shall we?" His English was perfect, touched with just enough accent to be exotic. His voice was deeper than she'd expected, rough around the edges like whiskey over broken glass. "Let's get this over with." Ayanna walked past him without waiting for a response, careful to keep her chin up, her stride confident. She felt his eyes on her back like a physical touch. The conference room was all modern minimalism. Glass walls, sleek furniture, a view of Hong Kong that probably cost more per square foot than most people made in a year. Ayanna sat across from Hyun, Edward Park and Elder Kwan flanking them like referees at a particularly dangerous boxing match. Contracts were placed between them. Ayanna read every word, aware of Hyun doing the same across from her. The silence stretched, broken only by the sound of turning pages. "I don't do arranged marriages, Mr. Cha." Ayanna didn't look up from the document. "Neither do I, Miss Sinclair." "Good." She finally met his eyes. Up close, they were even more intense, almost black, seeing too much. "Then we understand each other. This is business, nothing more." Hyun leaned back in his chair, studying her with an expression that made her want to squirm. She didn't. "You think you can handle being married to me?" The condescension in his tone made her blood heat. Ayanna leaned forward, holding his gaze. "The question is whether you can handle being married to me." Something flickered in his eyes. He turned to Junho, speaking rapid Korean. Ayanna caught enough to understand. She'd been learning the language for 3 months now. Another detail Edward had conveniently failed to mention she'd need. "I like her," Hyun had said. "That's going to be a problem," Junho replied. Hyun turned back to her, switching to English. "I've killed more men than you've met, Miss Sinclair." Ayanna smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Impressive. I've killed more than you've counted. Sit down before I add you to my list." Malik coughed, trying to hide what might have been a laugh. Junho's eyebrows rose. Hyun stared at her for another beat. Then, impossibly, the corner of his mouth twitched. "The wedding is in Seoul," he said, sitting back down. 1 week. "Fine." Ayanna picked up the pen, signing her name with sharp, aggressive strokes. "But understand something, Mr. Cha. I run an empire. I won't be some decorative wife locked in your house. And I won't be controlled by some spoiled British princess who thinks she's gangster." He signed his own name, each stroke deliberate. Their eyes locked. The air between them crackled with something that might have been hatred, or might have been something far more dangerous. "One more thing." Ayanna stood, gathering her things. Don't expect me to fall in love with you. I don't do sentiment. Hyun stood as well, and suddenly he was too close, invading her space in a way that should have been threatening, but felt like something else entirely. Good, neither do I. They were face to face now. Ayanna could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive and utterly masculine. Her breath caught and she hated herself for it. But if we're going to survive Victor, Hyun said, his voice dropping lower, we need to trust each other. Trust is earned. Then let's hope we live long enough for that. He extended his hand. Business. Professional. Except when Ayanna took it, when their palms pressed together, something electric shot up her arm. His hand was warm, calloused, strong. The handshake lasted a beat too long. Both of them noticed. Neither acknowledged it. Ayanna pulled away first, turning toward the elevator with what she hoped looked like casual confidence rather than retreat. In the elevator, Malik waited until the doors closed before speaking. He's not what I expected. Neither was I, apparently. Ayanna leaned against the wall, releasing a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. He looked at you like an asset. Ayanna cut him off sharply. That's all this is. But her hand was still tingling where Hyun had touched it, and she couldn't quite make herself believe her own words. On the rooftop, Hyun watched the helicopter lift off and disappear into the Hong Kong skyline. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. A photo. Ayanna Sinclair at 16 years old standing next to a Korean woman who looked hauntingly familiar. Young, beautiful. With Ayanna's eyes and smile, Hyun's blood ran cold. He knew that woman. He'd seen her photo before in Lee Dahan's private study. In the locked box of memories Dahan had kept from his past. Lee Min-ji, Dahan's younger sister, the one who disappeared 25 years ago and was never spoken of again. Who are you, Ayanna Sinclair? Hyun murmured to himself in Korean. Jun-ho appeared at his shoulder. Problem? I'm not sure yet. Hyun pocketed his phone. But I'm going to find out. The week before the wedding passed in a blur of preparation and mounting dread. Ayanna threw herself into work, crushing a trafficking operation in Brussels, expanding into cryptocurrency ventures in Singapore, anything to avoid thinking about what was coming. But at night, alone in her room, she couldn't stop her mind from racing. Marriage to a stranger. To a man who looked at her like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve or a threat he wanted to eliminate. She wasn't sure which was worse. You could still back out, Malik said on the private jet to Seoul. Run, disappear, I'd come with you. Ayanna looked at him, her oldest friend, her father's legacy, the brother she'd chosen over the one who'd abandoned her. And let Isaiah win? Let Victor win? Let everyone who said I was too young, too female, too soft to run this empire be proven right? You have nothing to prove. I have everything to prove. She turned back to the window. I always have. Seoul was beautiful. Ayanna hated that she noticed, hated that part of her. Wanted to explore the city rather than prepare for a wedding that felt like a funeral. The estate where the ceremony would take place was massive, a fusion of traditional Korean architecture and modern luxury, gardens that looked like paintings, and enough security to invade a small country. 500 guests, 2 empires, 1 marriage that nobody believed in. Ayanna stood in the bridal suite, surrounded by attendants fussing over her dress. It was custom-made, a masterpiece of white silk with gold African-inspired embroidery and Korean design elements. Beautiful, expensive, a cage made of fabric. She caught her reflection in the mirror. Her hair was styled in elegant waves, pinned with gold accessories. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like a bride. She felt like a soldier going to war. You look beautiful. Malik appeared in the doorway, dressed in a sharp suit. His expression was carefully neutral, but she could see the concern in his eyes. I look like a prisoner. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Ayanna turned from the mirror. For the empire. For father's legacy. She noticed something then. One of the Korean attendants had a tattoo barely visible beneath her sleeve. 3 intertwined stars, a Bratva symbol, Victor's symbol. Ayanna's blood ran cold. He was here, already inside their defenses. Malik, she kept her voice low, casual. The woman by the door, Bratva. Don't make a scene, just be ready. Malik's expression didn't change, but she saw his hand move subtly toward his concealed weapon. Understood. Across the estate, Hyun was having his own problems. Last chance to run, Junho said, adjusting Hyun's tie. The traditional Korean hanbok elements mixed with Western tuxedo created something striking, a bridge between 2 worlds, like the marriage itself. I made a promise, Hyun's voice was flat, to a dead man, the only man who mattered. The door opened. Yuna entered, and Hyun felt something twist in his chest. She'd been his friend since childhood, back when they'd both been street kids fighting to survive. She was pretty, in a delicate way. Soft where Ayanna was sharp, gentle where Ayanna was fire. You look handsome, Yuna said in Korean, her eyes wet. Yuna, I know this is duty. I just wanted to see you, before everything changes. She left quickly, tears streaming down her face. Hyun stared at the closed door, feeling something he couldn't quite name. She still loves you, Junho observed. I can't give her what she wants. Can you give the British girl what she wants? Hyun thought about Ayanna's sharp eyes, her sharper tongue, the way she'd looked at him like she wanted to either kill him or kiss him, maybe both. I don't think she wants anything from me except to survive this. And you? What do you want? Hyun didn't answer. He wasn't sure he knew. The ceremony was tense, beautiful, terrible. Ayanna walked down the aisle surrounded by flowers and silk and 500 pairs of eyes watching her every move. She could feel the Bratva infiltrators scattered throughout the crowd, could see her own security and Hyun's men eyeing each other like predators waiting to strike. And then she saw him. Hyun stood at the altar in his fusion suit, looking devastating and dangerous and utterly unreadable. Their eyes met, and for just a second, Ayanna forgot to breathe. Fire and ice, 2 opposing forces about to collide. The officiant spoke in Korean, then English. The words washed over Ayanna like water, meaningless sounds that would bind her to this stranger forever. Do you, Cha Hyun-woo, take Ayanna Sinclair as your wife? I do. His voice was steady. His eyes never left hers. Do you, Ayanna Sinclair, take Cha Hyun-woo as your husband? This was it. Her last chance to walk away, to choose freedom over duty, independence over alliance, to be alone rather than tied to a man she didn't know. She thought of her father, her empire, everything she'd built from blood and sacrifice. I do. You may kiss the bride. They leaned toward each other. The kiss was supposed to be brief, perfunctory, meaningless. It was supposed to mean nothing. But when their lips touched, electricity arced between them like lightning. Ayanna's eyes widened. Hyun's breath hitched. For one suspended moment, the entire world disappeared, and there was only this. The shocking heat of his mouth on hers, the way her body responded without permission, the feeling that something fundamental had just shifted. They broke apart quickly, both startled. The guests applauded. Ayanna's heart was racing. Hyun looked as shaken as she felt. As they walked back down the aisle together, Ayanna leaned close enough that only he could hear. That meant nothing. Agreed, Hyun replied, his voice rough. Neither of them believed it. The reception was a powder keg waiting to explode. Ayanna could feel the tension ratcheting higher with each passing moment. Bratva. Men scattered throughout the crowd. Her security on high alert. Hyun's crew ready for war. All of them just waiting for the match to light the fuse. A slow song began. Traditional. Romantic. Nauseating. We have to dance, Hyun said, appearing at her side. Everyone's watching. "How delightful," Ayanna replied, but she let him lead her to the floor. His hand settled on her waist, hers on his shoulder. They moved together, and despite everything, despite the fact that she barely knew this man, they fit, like pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. "Relax," Hyun murmured. "We're being watched." "I am relaxed. You're holding yourself like you're about to fight." "Old habit." He pulled her closer. Her breath caught. She could feel the heat of him through the layers of expensive fabric, could smell that dark cologne that was already becoming familiar. "I can feel your heartbeat," he said, his voice dropping to something almost intimate. "Don't flatter yourself." His mouth curved, almost a smile. "I don't need to." They moved together, swaying to music that felt like it was playing just for them. For a moment, just one brief, dangerous moment, Ayanna let herself imagine what it would be like if this were real, if this man holding her actually cared, if this marriage were more than a business transaction. Then reality crashed back in. "Victor's men are here," she said quietly. "At least 15. "I know." Hyun's expression didn't change. "I've counted 20. "Then we agree we're in danger." "When aren't we?" Their eyes met, held. The music swelled around them, and the world narrowed to just this. His hands on her body, her hands on his, the space between them charged with something neither wanted to name. Then the first gunshot shattered the moment into 1,000 bloody pieces. Chaos erupted like a bomb detonating. 1 second, Ayanna was in Hyun's arms. The next, she was on the floor, his body covering hers, as bullets shredded the air above them. Screams filled the ballroom. Glass shattered. Bodies dropped. "Stay down." Hyun's voice was sharp in her ear, but Ayanna was already moving. She shoved him off, reaching beneath her wedding dress to pull the Glock from its thigh holster. Not a chance. 3 shots. 3 Bratva soldiers down before they could process that the bride was armed. Ayanna moved like water, like violence, like everything her father had trained her to be. She dropped low, swept a charging attacker's legs, disarmed him, and put a bullet in his chest in one fluid motion. When she looked up, Hyun was staring at her with something that might have been shock or might have been desire. Hard to tell in the middle of a firefight. "Are you going to help or just watch?" she snapped, loading a fresh magazine. That broke whatever spell held him. Hyun moved, and Ayanna understood in that moment why men feared him. He was brutal, efficient, lethal. No wasted movements, no hesitation, just pure, controlled violence. They fought side by side, and it was like dancing, each covering the other's blind spots, moving in sync without communication, anticipating attacks and countering them together. Ayanna had never worked with anyone like this, had never trusted anyone enough to turn her back in the middle of combat. But with Hyun, it felt natural, like they'd been doing this for years instead of minutes. Malik appeared through the smoke, blood on his face but eyes sharp. "Underground garage. We have vehicles staged." Junho materialized from the opposite direction, shouting something in Korean. The two groups converged, former strangers now united by the simple goal of survival. "My men have a route," Hyun started. "My men have armored vehicles," Ayanna countered. They glared at each other, even now competing for control. "We don't have time for this," Malik and Junho said simultaneously, then looked at each other in mutual exasperation. A Bratva soldier grabbed Ayanna from behind. She didn't hesitate, drove her head back into his nose, felt the satisfying crunch of cartilage, spun and shot him twice in the chest. Blood splattered across her white dress like macabre decoration. Hyun pulled her toward the exit, his hand wrapped around her wrist. "Who are you?" "Your wife, apparently." Ayanna let him lead, covering their retreat with her weapon. They burst into the underground garage, piling into an armored SUV. Malik took the wheel. Junho rode shotgun. Ayanna and Hyun ended up in the back seat. too close, both breathing hard, both covered in blood and gunpowder residue. The vehicle screamed out of the garage as explosions lit up behind them. Ayanna watched the estate, her wedding venue, the place where she'd bound herself to a stranger, disappear in flames and smoke. "Everyone okay?" Malik's eyes found hers in the rearview mirror. "Define okay," Ayanna muttered, pressing her hand against her shoulder wound. The adrenaline was wearing off and the pain was starting to register. Sharp, hot, definitely more than a graze. "You're bleeding." Hyun's voice was flat, but his jaw was tight. "I'm aware." "Let me see." "I said I'm fine." He didn't ask again, just carefully moved her hand away from the wound, examining it with clinical precision. His touch was surprisingly gentle for someone who'd just killed at least a dozen men. "Bullet went through," he said. "Clean. You're lucky." "I feel so fortunate." But Ayanna didn't pull away. His hands on her skin felt grounding, real, like proof she was still alive. "This is getting intense, right? If you're on the edge of your seat, smash that like button and drop a comment. Who do you think sent those Bratva soldiers? Was it Victor or someone closer to home? Let me know your theories." The safe house was luxury hidden, behind layers of security, a penthouse apartment in an undisclosed location, all modern furniture and bulletproof glass. Ayanna collapsed onto a couch, finally letting herself feel the exhaustion and pain. Malik brought first aid supplies. "I'm fine," Ayanna insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. "You're bleeding all over my safe house," Hyun said, already taking the kit from Malik. "Sit down." There was command in his voice that made Ayanna's spine stiffen in automatic rebellion, but she was too tired to fight. And honestly, her shoulder hurt too much to care about pride. She sat. He knelt beside her, carefully cutting away the blood-soaked fabric of her dress. His fingers were warm against her skin as he cleaned the wound, surprisingly gentle for hands that had killed so efficiently just an hour ago. "Where did you learn field medicine?" Ayanna asked, watching his face. Up close, she could see the faint scars that marked his skin. Evidence of a violent past written in pale lines. "The streets. You learn or you die. You were an orphan. Is that in my file?" He met her eyes, something sharp in his gaze. "I do my research." "So do I, Oxford educated, father's protege, tripled the empire's revenue by 25. His hands moved efficiently, cleaning and bandaging. "You've been paying attention." "You're my wife. Of course I have." The word wife hung between them, heavy with implications neither wanted to examine. Ayanna watched him work, studying the strong line of his jaw, the way his dark hair fell across his forehead, the intensity with which he focused on her wound. "Where did you get that scar?" She gestured to the one cutting through his eyebrow. His hands stilled. When he looked up, his expression had shuttered completely. "That's not in your file?" "No." "Good. Some things should stay buried." He finished bandaging her shoulder and stood abruptly, putting distance between them. Ayanna felt the loss of his warmth like a physical thing, which was ridiculous. This was a business arrangement, nothing more. Malik entered with a laptop, his expression grim. "You need to see this." The surveillance footage and documents painted a picture that made Ayanna's blood run cold. Victor had been tracking both families for months. He'd known about the marriage clause, had probably orchestrated the timing of his attacks to force their hand, but it was the photographs that stopped her heart. Her mother, young, beautiful, radiant, standing next to a man Ayanna had never seen before, but who looked remarkably like Hyun. The caption read, "Lee Min-ji and Lee Da-han, Seoul, 2000. "That's my mother," Ayanna whispered. "Why is she with Lee Da-han?" Junho appeared in the doorway, saw the photo on screen. "That's Lee Min-ji, Da-han's younger sister. She disappeared 25 years ago. He never spoke of her after." The room seemed to tilt. Ayanna gripped the edge of the table, trying to process. My mother was Lee, Daehan's sister. That means you're, Hyun started, family. The word came out broken. They stared at each other across the room, this revelation rewriting everything they thought they knew. They weren't just strangers forced into marriage. They were blood, distant but still connected by ties older than either of them. More files revealed the rest of the story. Lee Min-ji had been FSB, Russian intelligence, before defecting. She'd fallen in love with James Sinclair, an MI6 agent. Together they'd stolen something from Viktor Sokolov that had made them targets for life. Nuclear launch codes, Cold War Soviet arsenals, the kind of weapon that could topple governments or start wars. Min-ji had hidden the codes before she died, and Victor believed Ayanna knew where. I don't. Ayanna's voice was hollow. I was 8 when she died. She never told me anything. A video file opened. Lee Daehan's face appeared on screen, clearly recorded shortly before his death. He looked tired, sick, but his eyes were sharp. Hyun-woo, Ayanna. If you're seeing this, I'm gone. His voice was rough with emotion. I spent 20 years protecting you both. Min-ji was my sister. When she ran from Victor, I helped her. I gave her refuge, gave her family. But Victor never forgot. He never forgave. He coughed, blood flecking his lips. Ayanna watched, transfixed, seeing her uncle for the first time, hearing him speak her name with such tenderness. The marriage contract wasn't just about alliances. It was about blood. You share blood, you two. Distant but still family. Together, you're stronger than Victor. Apart, he'll destroy you both. He looked directly into the camera, and it felt like he was looking right at Ayanna. Your mother left you something, a key. Find it. It will lead you to the truth. Hyun-woo, protect her. Not because I'm ordering you, but because she's the only one who can end this. The video ended. Silence filled the room like smoke. I'm just a pawn. Ayanna's voice cracked. To all of you, a piece on a board that men moved around for their own purposes. You're the queen on the board. Hyun's voice was quiet but firm. Victor can't win without taking you. How comforting? Ayanna stood, walking to the window, arms wrapped around herself. Seoul sprawled below, lights twinkling like stars. A city that was supposed to be home now. A life that was supposed to be hers. I didn't ask for this, any of this. Neither did I. She heard him move closer, but here we are. Married, hunted, and I don't even know if I can trust you. I don't lie, Ayanna. His voice was right behind her now. If I want something, I take it. If I don't want something, I destroy it. She turned, and he was closer than she expected. Close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could feel the heat radiating from his body. And what do you want from me? He stepped closer still, and suddenly the air between them was charged with electricity. I haven't decided yet. Her breath caught. This was dangerous. This feeling, this pull, this man who looked at her like she was a mystery he wanted to solve, and a threat he wanted to eliminate, and a woman he wanted to... We have movement. Junho's voice shattered the moment. 2 blocks south. Ayanna stepped back quickly, grateful for the interruption. Whatever had been building between them felt too intense, too real for a marriage that was supposed to be fake. Victor's men? Hyun's voice was all business now. No. Junho looked uncomfortable. It's Yuna. The name made something cold settle in Ayanna's chest, though she couldn't explain why. She'd never met the woman, had no claim on Hyun beyond a contract signed under duress. But when Yuna entered, delicate, pretty, crying, with blood staining her shoulder, and Hyun immediately went to her, something sharp twisted in Ayanna's gut. What happened? Hyun spoke to her in Korean, gentle in a way Ayanna hadn't heard from him before. Are you hurt? Yuna looked at Ayanna, then back to Hyun, then switched to English. Her voice shook. I need to tell you something. I should have told you before, but I was scared, and now everything is—" "Breathe," Hyun said. "Tell me." Tears streamed down Yuna's face. "I'm pregnant." The words landed like a bomb. The room went silent. Ayanna felt every muscle in her body lock tight, felt that cold thing in her chest spread like frost. "It's yours," Yuna continued, sobbing now. "From the night before the wedding. You were drunk. You don't remember, but that's impossible." Hyun stepped back. "I wasn't with you." "You were. You came to my apartment. You said you needed to feel something real before you married her." "Stop." Hyun's voice was hard now. I have proof. Doctors confirmed it. I'm 8 weeks pregnant. The timing matches." "How convenient." Ayanna's voice cut through the room like a blade. Everyone turned to look at her. She stood perfectly still, perfectly composed, though inside she felt like she was shattering. "Timing is everything, isn't it, Yuna? This revelation right after the wedding, after the contracts are signed." "I didn't plan this," Yuna protested. "Congratulations." Ayanna turned to Hyun, her voice colder than ice. "On both your marriage and your impending fatherhood." "Ayanna," Hyun started toward her. "Don't." She held up a hand, stopping him. "We had a contract, a business arrangement. You just made it infinitely more complicated." "I didn't sleep with her." "It doesn't matter." "Yes, it does. We're not a real marriage." The words exploded out of her, loud enough to echo off the walls. "You can do whatever you want with whoever you want, but don't expect me to play the dutiful wife while you sort out your mess." She turned and walked toward one of the bedrooms, every line of her body radiating fury. But it wasn't really fury, was it? It was hurt. It was betrayal. It was the sharp sting of realizing she'd started to care when caring was the last thing she should be doing. The door slammed behind her with enough force to rattle the walls. In the living room, Hyun rounded on Yuna, his voice dangerous. "Get out." "Hyun-woo, please." "Jun-ho, take her to the medical facility, get her checked out, find out the truth." His jaw was tight enough to crack teeth. "Now." Jun-ho escorted a sobbing Yuna out, leaving Hyun alone with Malik, who was watching him with an expression that could have cut glass. "She's hurt," Malik said quietly. "I know. She doesn't trust easily, and when she does, betrayal destroys her." "I didn't touch Yuna." Hyun met his eyes directly. "I wasn't with her that night. I was at Lee Dahan's grave. Jun-ho was with me the entire time." "Then prove it." Malik's hand moved subtly toward his concealed weapon. "Because right now, my loyalty is to Ayanna, and if you hurt her, contract or not, I'll put a bullet in your head." He left. Hyun stood alone, staring at the closed bedroom door, feeling something twist in his chest that he didn't want to name. Inside the bedroom, Ayanna sat on the edge of the bed, shaking with rage, and something else she refused to acknowledge. Why did it hurt? This was never real. This was never supposed to— A knock at the door. "Go away." The door opened anyway. Of course it did. Hyun stepped inside and closed it behind him. "I said, I heard you. I don't care." Ayanna stood, hands clenched into fists. "Get out." "Not until you listen." He moved closer, and she saw something in his expression that looked almost vulnerable, almost human. "Listen to what? Your excuses? Your lies?" "I don't lie." Another step. "I didn't sleep with Yuna. She's pregnant." "I know what she said." He was right in front of her now. "But I wasn't with her that night. I was with Lee Dahan's grave. Jun-ho was with me the entire night. I was drunk, yes, but not with her." Ayanna wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly it physically hurt. Then why would she lie? "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." Silence stretched between them. Ayanna turned away, unable to look at him, unable to handle the intensity of whatever was building in this room. "It doesn't matter. This marriage is a contract, nothing more." "Is that what you tell yourself?" His voice was dangerous now, rough around the edges. What else should I tell myself? She whirled back to face him. That this is real, that you and I... She stopped herself, but not fast enough. Say it, Hyun demanded, stepping closer. There's nothing to say. You felt it too, on the dance floor when we fought together. Just now, before Junho interrupted. Stop. She backed up until she hit the wall. He followed, caging her in with his body. Not touching, but close enough that she could feel the heat of him, smell that dark cologne that was becoming dangerously familiar. You're terrified. I'm not of me, not of Victor, of this. His eyes burned into hers. Of us. There is no us, but her voice shook, betraying her. Liar. He leaned in, his forehead almost touching hers. You feel this, whatever this is. You feel it just as much as I do. She did. God help her. She did. This pull, this magnetic force that made her want to close the distance between them, made her want to taste his mouth again, made her want things that were dangerous and stupid and would only end in disaster. Her phone rang, loud, jarring, breaking the spell. Ayanna grabbed it like a lifeline, grateful and frustrated in equal measure. Unknown number. She put it on speaker with shaking hands. What? Pretty wedding. Victor Sokolov's voice filled the room like poison. Shame about the blood. Ayanna's spine went rigid. Victor, you've made quite the pair, you and the Korean dog, but you're still missing the most important piece. Hyun moved closer to the phone. What do you want? What your mother took from me, Ayanna. The codes. You have 72 hours to deliver them, or I start killing everyone you love. He paused, letting that sink in. Starting with your brother. Ayanna's blood turned to ice. Isaiah is very much alive, and very much my guest. Victor's smile was audible. Tick-tock, princess. The line went dead. Ayanna stared at the phone like it might come back to life and deliver more terrible news. Her brother, Isaiah, the one who'd abandoned her, stolen from her, disappeared without a word, the one she'd told herself she hated for 6 years. He was alive, and Victor had him. I thought he was dead. Her voice came out hollow. He took millions from the accounts and vanished. I assumed someone killed him for the money or he OD'd somewhere. I stopped looking after the first year. Hyun was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. And now he's leverage. I don't even know where the codes are. Ayanna felt panic rising in her chest, threatening to choke her. My mother never told me anything. I was a child when she died. I don't have what Victor wants. Lee Da-han said she left you a key. What did he mean? I don't know. A literal key? A metaphor? A riddle? She was spiraling now, the carefully constructed walls she'd built around herself starting to crack. My brother is going to die because of something I don't even have. Hyun gripped her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. Breathe. We'll find it. Together. Why? The question burst out of her. Why are you helping me? This isn't your fight. Isaiah isn't your family. You could walk away right now and... Because Lee Da-han died protecting you, and I keep my promises. His hands were warm on her skin, grounding. Because you're my wife, and I protect what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice sent shivers down her spine. I'm not yours. He leaned closer, his mouth nearly touching her ear. Keep telling yourself that. Then he released her and stepped back, all business again. Think. What do you remember about your mother? Anything she said? Anything she gave you? Places she took you? Ayanna forced herself to focus, to push past the panic and fear. She sang to me, Korean lullabies. She taught me Hangul before English. She had a music box. She stopped. The music box. Father locked it away after she died. Said it was too painful to hear. It's in his private vault in London. Then we go to London. Hyun said immediately. Jun-ho, who'd been standing quietly in the doorway, shook his head. That's exactly what Victor expects. He'll have men waiting. I don't care what he expects. Hyun's voice was steel. We need that music box. The private jet cut through the night sky, carrying them back across the world. Ayanna sat alone by a window, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the darkness outside. Her shoulder ached. Her head ached. Everything ached. She heard footsteps but didn't turn around. Can't sleep? Hyun's voice. He settled into the seat across from her, 2 glasses of whiskey in his hands. Too much to think about. He offered her a glass. I don't drink with strangers. I'm your husband. Same thing. But she took the glass anyway, let the burn of expensive whiskey ground her. They drank in silence for a moment. It should have been awkward, but somehow it wasn't. Somehow, sitting here in the darkness with this man she barely knew felt more comfortable than it had any right to. Tell me about Lee Da-han, Ayanna said finally. What was he like? Hyun looked surprised. Why do you want to know? He was my uncle. I never met him. I want to understand why he did all this. Something shifted in Hyun's expression. He was hard, fair. He found me when I was 15, half dead in an alley. Some gang had beaten me for stealing food from their territory. He saved you. He gave me a choice, die in the streets or learn to fight back. I chose to fight. And he trained you. Hyun nodded, his fingers tightening around his glass. Everything I know, everything I am, I owe to him. He could have left me to die. Instead, he gave me purpose, power, a family when I had nothing. That's why you keep your promises. That's why I'll keep you safe. His eyes met hers, intense and unwavering. I swore to protect you, and Cha Hyun-woo doesn't break his word. Ayanna felt something shift in her chest. I watched my father build his empire. Then I watched him die for it. Car accident, they said, but I never believed it. You think Victor killed him? I know he did. I just couldn't prove it. She took another drink, let the memories surface. That's when I realized I had to be stronger, colder. I couldn't afford to be weak, couldn't afford to trust, couldn't afford to feel. You're not weak. Hyun's voice was firm. You don't know me. I know you fight like a demon. I know you'd rather die than show fear. I know you're terrified right now and you're still here, still fighting. He leaned forward. I know that kiss at the altar scared you because you felt it too. Ayanna's breath caught. Don't. Don't what? Tell the truth? He set down his glass, and suddenly the space between them felt charged. We can pretend this is just business. We can lie to everyone else, but don't lie to yourself. What do you see when you look at me? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Fire. He didn't hesitate. Steel, someone who doesn't break. Someone who terrifies me and fascinates me in equal measure. Everyone breaks eventually, not you. He stood, crossed to her seat, and she should have told him to back off, should have maintained distance, but she didn't. You bend, you adapt, but you don't break. He was so close now, close enough that she could see the exact shade of his eyes, not pure black, but deepest brown with flecks of amber. Close enough that when he raised his hand toward her face, she felt her heart stutter. What are we doing? She whispered. I don't know. His thumb brushed her cheek and she shivered. But I can't seem to stop. They were leaning toward each other, pulled by gravity and something more dangerous. His gaze dropped to her mouth. Her pulse hammered. Another second and they would... The plane hit turbulence, violent, jarring. They broke apart as the aircraft shook. Sorry, folks. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Bit of rough air ahead. Ayanna laughed, a real, genuine sound that surprised them both. The universe is conspiring against us. Hyun smiled, and it transformed his face, made him look younger, less dangerous, almost boyish. Or protecting you from me. Maybe I don't need protection. Maybe you do. The smile faded, replaced by something more serious. Because when this is over, when we've dealt with Victor and found the codes and saved your brother, I don't think I'm going to be able to let you go. The honesty in his voice stole her breath. Ayanna wanted to say something clever, something dismissive, something that would maintain the walls between them. Instead, she just looked at him and whispered, "Then don't." The Sinclair estate in London rose before them like a monument to old money and older secrets. Ayanna led them through halls she'd walked her entire life, past portraits of ancestors who'd built this empire through blood and cunning, to her father's private study. "The vault is behind the portrait," she said, stopping before a painting of her mother. Minji stared out from the canvas, beautiful and mysterious, holding secrets even in death. Ayanna moved the painting aside, revealing a biometric safe, her hand on the scanner, a click. The door swung open. Inside were stacks of documents, old weapons, and there, a small wooden music box, delicate and worn with age. Ayanna lifted it with trembling hands. When she opened it, a melody filled the air. Airy rang, a Korean lullaby that pulled at something deep in her chest. "My mother used to sing this," Hyun said softly, recognition in his voice. "Yours too?" "Before she died, when I was very young." Another connection between them, another invisible thread binding their lives together. Ayanna examined the music box, and there, engraved inside the lid, a message in her mother's handwriting. "For my Ayanna. The truth is where we sang under the stars." Where we sang under the stars. Ayanna closed her eyes, reaching for memories 2 decades old. "She used to take me to our summer house in the Cotswolds. We'd lie in the garden at night and she'd sing to me." A memory surfaced, sharp and clear. She was 7 years old, lying on a blanket beneath a sky full of stars. Her mother's voice soft in the darkness, singing Arirang, the smell of flowers and grass and safety. "Remember this place, my darling," Minji had said. "If anything happens to me, come back here. I've left something for you." "What is it, Umma?" "The truth." Ayanna's eyes snapped open. "I know where it is." The Cotswolds estate was abandoned, overgrown, haunting in the moonlight. The gardens where Ayanna had played as a child were wild now, nature reclaiming what humans had left behind. She walked through the tall grass, following paths only she remembered, until she found it. A stone bench, weathered but still standing. "Here." She knelt, pushing aside years of overgrowth. "We laid right here." Hyun knelt beside her, helping her search. Beneath the bench, a stone was loose. Together they pried it up. A waterproof metal box hidden for 20 years. Ayanna's hand shook as she opened it. Inside, a USB drive, a letter, and a photograph. Young Minji, Lee Dahan, James Sinclair, and baby Ayanna, all smiling like they had no idea what was coming. She picked up the letter, her mother's handwriting blurring through sudden tears. "Read it to me," Hyun said quietly. "I want to hear her voice." So Ayanna read, her voice breaking on every word. "My dearest Ayanna, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm so sorry, my darling. I tried to protect you from this world, but I failed. The USB contains the codes Victor wants. Soviet launch protocols that could start wars, topple governments. I stole them because I couldn't let him sell them to the highest bidder. Your father helped me hide them, hide you. Dahan, my brother, gave everything to keep us safe. He arranged your marriage to protect you. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong. You and Hyun together can end this. Don't give Victor the codes. Destroy them. Burn the world he wants to build. I love you more than words. Be fierce. Be free. Amma." Silence fell like snow. Ayanna clutched the letter, tears streaming down her face. All these years, she'd thought her mother's death was random, but Minji had known, had prepared, had loved her enough to sacrifice everything. She died because of me, Ayanna whispered. Hyun's hands found her face, gentle and sure. She died protecting you. There's a difference. What if I can't do this? What if I'm not strong enough? You're the strongest person I've ever met. His forehead touched hers, and in that moment, Ayanna let herself lean into him, let herself be held, let herself be human instead of a weapon. Why do I feel this with you? She asked, the question barely a breath between them. Because you're not alone anymore. They stayed like that, kneeling in the ruins of her childhood, holding each other in the darkness, and for the first time in 6 years, Ayanna didn't feel like she was carrying the weight of the world by herself. Her phone shattered the moment. Victor's voice, cold and amused. "Time's up, princess, I'm done waiting." Ayanna pulled back, wiping her eyes, the warrior snapping back into place. "What do you want?" "You have the codes. I know you do. Meet me at the old Sinclair warehouse by the Thames. 1 hour, you, your husband, and the USB, or your brother dies." "How do I know he's alive?" Sounds of struggle. Then Isaiah's voice, strained and weak. "Ayanna, don't." A punch, a groan. 1 hour, Victor repeated. "Come alone, just the two of you. No army, or I start sending pieces of him." The line went dead. Hyun was already standing, pulling out his phone. It's a trap. Obviously. We can't go in blind. Ayanna stood too, steel in her spine again. She looked at the USB drive, at the codes that had cost her mother's life. Then we go in smart. She pulled out her laptop, plugged in the drive, and started working. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, years of self-taught hacking skills put to use. "What are you doing?" Malik asked. "Making a Trojan horse." Ayanna's smile was sharp and dangerous. "He wants codes? I'll give him a virus that will fry every system he touches, something that will burn his entire operation to the ground." Hyun watched her work, something like admiration in his eyes. "Oxford education?" "Self-taught. Father's library had everything I needed." The progress bar filled. Done. She held up the USB drive. "When he plugs this in, every server, every account, every piece of data he has will corrupt. He'll be left with nothing. And if he doesn't fall for it, then we improvise." Ayanna started loading weapons, checking. Magazines, sliding knives into hidden sheaths. "We've gotten pretty good at that." They prepared in tense silence. Ayanna, Hyun, Malik, and Junho. An alliance forged in blood and necessity, about to walk into certain danger for a brother who'd abandoned them and a man who wanted them dead. Before they left, Hyun caught Ayanna's wrist, pulling her aside. "If we don't make it," she started, "we will. But if we don't..." She looked up at him, this man who'd become so much more than a contract in such a short time. "I want you to know, this marriage, it stopped being fake somewhere along the way. For me." She watched emotions flicker across his face. Surprise, heat, something that might have been fear or might have been hope. "Ayanna, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know." She started to turn away, but his hand shot out, catching her wrist, spinning her back. His other hand cupped her face and his eyes were blazing. "You think I don't feel it, too?" And then his mouth was on hers, and Ayanna forgot how to breathe. This wasn't like the wedding kiss, brief and shocking and confusing. This was deliberate, consuming. His lips moved against hers like he was trying to memorize the taste of her, like he might never get another chance. She kissed him back with everything she had, all the fear and fury and need she'd been holding back. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, his arms wrapped around her waist, lifting her slightly, pressing her against him until there was no space left between their bodies. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. "When this is over," he started. "When this is over," she agreed. A promise, a future. If they survived long enough to claim it, the warehouse district by the Thames was exactly the kind of place where people went to die. Dark, industrial, abandoned, perfect for an ambush. Ayanna and Hyun approached side by side, weapons, concealed but ready. Above them, on rooftops they'd scouted hours ago, Malik and Junho were positioned with sniper rifles, insurance, backup, hope. The warehouse doors stood open like a mouth waiting to swallow them whole. "Last chance to run," Hyun said. "Where's the fun in that?" Ayanna replied, and together they walked into the lion's den. Viktor Sokolov stood in the center of the warehouse like a king surveying his kingdom. 20 armed men surrounded him, automatic weapons trained on the entrance. And there, tied to a chair, beaten but alive, was Ayanna Sinclair. Ayanna's breath caught. Her brother looked terrible, face swollen, blood crusted around his mouth, one eye swollen shut. But he was breathing. That was something. "The happy couple." Victor's voice echoed through the empty space, Russian accent thick with mockery. How touching. True love conquering all. "Let him go," Ayanna said, her voice steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. "The codes first." Victor's smile was all teeth and cruelty. Ayanna held up the USB drive, letting it catch the dim light. "Everything you want is on here." Victor laughed, the sound bouncing off concrete walls. "You think I'm a fool? You think I don't know what you've done? That you've tried to poison it with some virus or trap?" Hyun's hand moved subtly toward his. "Concealed weapon." "Then what do you want?" Victor pulled out a gun, aimed it casually at Isaiah's head. "I want you to watch him die. I want you to feel what your mother did to me. She took everything, my future, my power, my destiny." "She stopped you from starting a war," Ayanna said. "She stole my destiny." Victor's composure cracked, rage flooding through. "I was going to be a king. Those codes were my ticket to unlimited power, unlimited wealth, and she took them because she thought she was some kind of hero." He cocked the gun. Isaiah flinched, but his eyes found Ayanna's. Even beaten, even terrified, he looked at her with something like pride, like he was sorry, like he understood what she'd become in his absence. "Wait." Ayanna stepped forward. "Ayanna, no." Hyun reached for her. She shook him off. "You want the codes? Real ones? They're not on the USB." Victor's eyes narrowed. "Then where?" Ayanna tapped her temple. "Here, my mother made me memorize them. Every number, every sequence, before she died. She knew someone would come for them eventually, so she made sure they could never be stolen. Only given." It was a lie, a beautiful, perfect lie, but Ayanna sold it with every ounce of skill her father had trained into her. Victor studied her, trying to find the deception. "Prove it. Let Isaiah go first. No, you recite them, now, or he dies." Ayanna took a breath, and then she started speaking, a sequence of numbers and letters she'd spent the helicopter ride memorizing from the actual codes, just enough to sound legitimate. Alpha Tango 79 Bravo Delta 32. Victor's eyes widened. His tech guy was typing frantically on a laptop, cross-referencing. It matches the prefix codes," the tech said, shocked. "Soviet-era formatting. The structure is correct. It could be real." "Continue," Victor demanded. "Release Isaiah." "No, but I'll make you a deal." Victor's gun never wavered. "You come with me. Give me the full codes, and I let everyone else live. Your husband, your brother, all your men. They walk away. You're the only price." "That's not happening," Hyun said immediately, stepping forward. Victor's gun swung toward him. "Then I kill him. Then your brother. Then everyone you love, little princess. One by one, while you watch." Ayanna met Hyun's eyes, saw the desperation there, the fury, the fear. In just a few short days, this man had become something she never expected. Someone who mattered. Someone she might even... "Hyun," she said softly, "don't." His voice was breaking. "Don't you dare. I have to. We'll find another way. There is no other way." She smiled at him, sad and final. Protect our family. The word "our" hit him like a bullet. She could see it in his face, the realization that somewhere in the chaos and danger, they'd become something real. Ayanna started walking toward Victor, each step feeling like a mile. She could hear Hyun behind her, could hear him, saying her name like a prayer or a curse, could hear the desperation in his voice. Victor reached for her, triumph in his eyes, and Ayanna spoke into the microphone hidden in her sleeve. Now. Everything exploded into chaos. Gunfire erupted from the rooftops, Malik and Jun-ho picking off Victor's men with lethal precision. Ayanna dropped to the ground, rolling, pulling her weapon in one smooth motion. 2 shots, 2 men down. Hyun was already moving, a blur of violence and fury. He fought like a demon, like a man with everything to lose, taking down anyone who got between him and Victor. The warehouse became a war zone. Bullets ricocheted off metal beams. Men screamed and fell. The careful balance of power shattered into beautiful, terrible chaos. Ayanna fought her way to Isaiah, cutting his bonds with a knife from her boot. "Can you walk?" "I can run if it means getting the hell out of here," Isaiah gasped, stumbling to his feet. "Then run. Malik's outside. He'll get you. Safe." "Ayanna, go!" She shoved him toward the exit, then spun back to find Hyun. He was locked in hand-to-hand combat with Victor, and it was brutal, savage. Both men fighting with the kind of desperation that comes from having everything on the line. Victor was good, trained by the best the Bratva had to offer, but Hyun was better. He moved with a grace that belied the violence, every strike calculated, every block precise. He disarmed Victor with a move so fast Ayanna almost missed it, then got him in a chokehold. "Kill me," Victor gasped, still defiant even in defeat. "But this doesn't end. There are others. They'll come for her, for the codes. Then I'll kill them too." Hyun's voice was cold, final. "You love her. That makes you weak." "No." Hyun's grip tightened. "It makes me unstoppable." The snap of Victor's neck echoed through the sudden silence. It was over. Ayanna stood across the warehouse, blood-stained and breathing hard, watching as Hyun let Victor's body drop. Their eyes met across the carnage, across the bodies and smoke and wreckage of everything that had tried to destroy them. He started walking toward her. She started walking toward him. They met in the middle, and Ayanna's legs gave out. Just collapsed, the adrenaline crash hitting her like a tidal wave. Hyun caught her, his arms wrapping around her, holding her up. "I've got you." "Is it over?" Her voice was small, lost. "It's over." He held her tighter. "It's over." Ayanna buried her face in his chest and let herself break, just for a moment. Let herself be human and scared and relieved all at once. His hand stroked her hair, his voice murmuring something in Korean she didn't understand, but felt in her bones. They stood like that, 2 warriors holding each other in the aftermath, until the sound of sirens forced them to move. 3 months later, London bloomed with spring flowers and new beginnings. The Sinclair Cha estate was a masterpiece of blended cultures. British elegance meeting Korean minimalism, creating something entirely new, something that belonged to both of them and neither of them and perfectly them. Ayanna stood on the balcony overlooking the gardens, wearing casual clothes for the first time in what felt like years. Her hair was loose, falling in waves down her back. No armor, no weapons, just her. Arms wrapped around her waist from behind, and she smiled, leaning back into Hyun's warmth. "What are you thinking?" he murmured against her neck. "That 3 months ago I hated you. And now?" She turned in his arms, looking up at him. He was different too, softer around the edges, less guarded, more alive. "Now I'm stuck with you." Legally binding. Unfortunately. But she was smiling, and so was he. And when he kissed her, it was slow and deep and full of promise. They'd had 3 months to explore this thing between them. 3 months to learn each other without death hanging over their heads, and every day, Ayanna fell a little deeper into this marriage that had started as a trap and become something like freedom. "Hate to interrupt," Malik's voice came from the doorway, "but we have a situation." They broke apart, immediately alert. Some habits died hard. "What kind of situation?" Ayanna asked. "Yuna." Hyun tensed. They'd been avoiding this conversation, knowing it would come eventually, but hoping to steal a little more peace first. "DNA results came back," Malik continued. "The baby isn't yours." Relief flooded Hyun's face. Ayanna had believed him from the start, had chosen to trust when trust didn't come easily, but the confirmation still felt good. "Who's the father?" Hyun asked. "Junho." Silence. Then Hyun laughed, a sharp disbelieving sound. "Junho, my sworn brother. And he never said anything." "They ran," Malik added. "Both of them. To Busan, from what we can tell." Hyun looked at Ayanna, something complicated in his expression. Junho had been his right hand, his closest friend. The betrayal should have hurt more than it did. "Let them go," Ayanna said, surprising herself. "He betrayed me." He loved her. She touched his face, gentle. "Sometimes love makes us do stupid things, like marrying a stranger and falling for him." Hyun's expression softened. "Yeah, stupid." He kissed her again, and Ayanna thought about how much had changed. How this man who'd been a stranger was now the person she trusted most in the world. How a forced marriage had become the realest thing in her life. "There's more," Malik said, and something in his tone made Ayanna's instincts flare. "Of course there is. Isaiah. He's been talking to the Russians, Victor's lieutenants." The name sent ice through Ayanna's veins. "Where is he?" "Moscow. He's building something, an alliance. Word is he's planning to come after you, after both of you." Ayanna closed her eyes, felt Hyun's hand find hers, squeeze. Her brother, saved from Victor's execution only to become a new threat. The cycle never really ended, did it? "Then we'll stop him," Hyun said, his voice firm. "Together. He's my brother, and he'll destroy everything we've built." Hyun turned her to face him. "I'm not losing you. Not to Victor, not to Isaiah, not to anyone." They stared at each other, and Ayanna saw her future in his eyes. Not peace. They'd never have that, not in this life, but partnership, strength. Someone to fight beside and come home to. "Together?" she asked. "Always. Before you go, don't leave me hanging. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think Isaiah can be saved, or has he become the villain? And hit that subscribe button because part 2 is coming, and trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Isaiah's revenge, new enemies, and the question we're all wondering, can this marriage survive when an empire's at stake? Share this with someone who loves a good mafia romance, and let's blow this up. See you in part 2, fam. Ayanna and Hyun stood side by side on their balcony, looking out over their empire. London skyline in one direction, the future stretching before them in another. Behind them lay blood and sacrifice and a marriage built on necessity. Ahead lay new threats, new challenges, new battles. But they'd face them together. Ayanna's hand found Hyun's, their fingers intertwining naturally now, wedding rings catching the light, gold bands that had started as chains and become something like promises. "You know what the funny thing is?" Ayanna said softly. "What?" "I spent 6 years building walls, making myself untouchable, convincing myself I didn't need anyone." She looked up at him. "And then you crashed into my life and destroyed every single defense I had." I could say the same thing. His thumb traced circles on her palm. "I thought marriage was a prison, thought letting someone in was weakness. And now? Now I think I'd burn the world down before I let anyone take you from me." The possessiveness should have scared her, should have made her pull away. Instead, it made her feel safe, chosen, loved. They're going to keep coming, she said. Victor's men, Isaiah's revenge, other enemies we haven't even met yet. This life doesn't come with happy endings. Then we'll write our own ending. Hyun pulled her closer, his arms around her waist. You and me against everyone who wants us dead. I like those odds. You're insane. You married me. What does that make you? Equally insane. But she was smiling, and so was he, and when she kissed him, it tasted like promise and danger and something that might actually be happiness. They pulled apart slowly, reluctantly. There was work to do, always work to do. Empires to run, enemies to face, a brother in Moscow who needed to be stopped before he could destroy them. But for now, for this moment, they stood together on their balcony and let themselves just be. Not the Sinclair heir and the Seoul crime lord, not weapons, or warriors or calculated threats, just Ayanna and Hyun, husband and wife, partners in every sense that mattered. Ready? Hyun asked, squeezing her hand. Ayanna squeezed back. With you? Always. They turned from the view, walking back into their home, side by side, equal, united, unbreakable. Behind them, the sun set over London, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Beautiful, violent, perfect, just like them. The war was over. But their story was just beginning. And this time, they'd write it together.